Welcome, everyone. Let the mountains talk, let the rivers run. There is wisdom here. There's so much to learn in each brand new day, in our own rebirth, in this healing time for our Mother Earth. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Whidbey Island and our annual Earth Day service. I'm Tara Anderson.
And I'm Jay Taxony Hewitt.
And it's our honor to lead worship with you today. A couple announcements before we start. Our pledge campaign has officially ended, and there are a dozen or more of you who normally pledge, but I've not heard from you. And for those of you who might be confused, I'm the church treasurer. Please do send your pledges so I can generate a well-informed budget for next year for your consideration at our annual meeting on June 5th. Thank you. Also, we're leaving the chat enabled during this service. It's as close as I think we can come to the smiles and the eye connection and the expressions that we used to share when we met here in the sanctuary. I ask you to use it judiciously, of course, sending remarks to the individuals with whom you most want to speak. But do make comments to each other as you are so inclined. And for any of you who is distracted or irritated by that chat box, if it pops up in the middle of the screen, simply take your mouse and drag it to the side. You can also grab the lower right-hand corner and make it smaller. So today, we honor Gaia, Mother Earth. You all know the litany of the indicators that our world is suffering from a climate crisis, and the standard criticisms of our measly individual, national, and global response. I have a full bookshelf of dire warnings. I know I do, and perhaps you too, accuse ourselves of being a selfish generation, not willing to make the systemic changes necessary to ensure a healthy world for our unborn grandchildren and the generations to come. And while there may be some truth in those indictments, perhaps there is more change underway than we fully appreciate. Rather than feel powerless to change everything in the world, what if we focus on what we can do and then do it with joy, enthusiasm, and appreciation? Maybe then our ideas and our actions become infectious in a good way. For last year's Earth Day service, many of you shared what you love about living here on Whidbey Island. Your ideas became the opening words of our UUCWI 5-year vision. We are rooted on this sacred island. We know we protect what we love. So this year, our service offers a glimpse into how 40 of your fellow congregants protect our Mother Gaia. Thank you all. The overwhelming response produced more video than could possibly fit in an hour. So we did some cutting and editing. Later this week, when the recording of the service is posted, we will also post the remainder of the video clips so you can see the full scope of how Earth stewardship is being practiced by our fellow congregants. Please watch and give a huge shout out to Mavis for weaving your videos into what we're going to get to see today. Last week, Emily reminded us of how stories have the power to shape and misshape the culture in which we all live. They shape our individual behaviors and our definitions of a good life. We would suggest our Judeo-Christian creation story and the stories we grew up with post-World War II, the ones about perpetual growth, that what we buy will make us happy, that technology will repair any damage we do. Most of those stories are proving to be detrimental to life on Earth. The good news is that many of us are creating new stories. Jay today is going to explore some of those stories, the ones that are life-giving and some that are not. Now it is my honor to introduce Jay to this congregation and vice versa. Jay and their husband, Sean, have lived on the island since shortly before COVID struck. So they've not had the opportunity to receive our proper UUCWI welcome. We've only been friends a couple months, but I'm inspired and enriched by their presence. I shake my head in awe and respect for Jay's love of learning. They're working on their 12th degree, including 2 PhDs. Their education is both eclectic and esoteric. Some of the degrees I can't even pronounce, much less presume to understand. Jay also carries a Master of Divinity, although they haven't yet been ordained UU minister. Jay speaks several languages and learned ancient Greek so they could study the Bible in some of its original form. We're all in for a treat once we get to meet again in person and can be in more conversation with this delightful, gentle person.
Well, hello, everyone. It's really, really great to get a chance to say hello to you all. I've been looking forward to it so much. Thank you so much for letting me be with you today. I'm really grateful. Tara and I are going to light the chalice this morning together. The words we're going to use are by Paul Sprecher. So as we go through the words, let's go a little slowly, and we're going to treat it like a bit of a guided visualization. I'll read it once through quickly, and then we'll do it again, taking just a short moment with each image so we can really visualize it and bring it into our hearts. You can keep your eyes open or closed, but let's try to be settled and centered if we can, so that our mental images can be really clear. We just want to use our imagination for a second. So here's the first time through. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. Great. So now let's do it again. And just see what you imagine when we use words like sustain, for example. See what comes to mind. What do you imagine when we say Mother Earth and things like that? Just note these things to yourself, and we'll do it again slowly. And this time we will light the chalice. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky, above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery. Thank you, Tara. So now, please, without commentary on each other's sharing, feel free to share an image that came to you that you think others might resonate with. Now, we're not going to read them out, but feel free to share those ideas or images in the chat. Just a word like water or whale, or an image like coming together or peace, whatever came to you. And we'll give you just a second to go ahead and type it in and share. Well, today is a day of sharing abundance, of sharing the goodness of our living planet, and of sharing the burdens that trouble us in these very troubled and troubling times. We come together today to celebrate life together on this island Whidbey and this island Earth, and to celebrate the especially good life afforded by loving community. It is very good to affirm Earth, to affirm ourselves and each other, and to affirm that we are led by love in how we show up as part of the world's others' experience. As we say our affirmation today, let's recognize that we come to each other as part of each other's worlds. And as we hear it, let us be affirmed in hearing how part of the world, for this next little while at least, is here saying this to us and to each other.
Love is the spirit of this congregation,
and service is its practice.
This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. Today's story for all ages is by UU minister Reverend Aaron McKemris. This is Earth at the Interplanetary Conference. Every 5,000 years or so, all the planets in our solar system gather. They roast marshmallows in the warm glow of the sun, catch up on news, and thoroughly enjoy each other's company. But at the most recent meeting, a few weeks ago, Earth was clearly very upset. "They used to be so cute and polite," she said. They used to be gentle. They used to thank me for everything they took, for their food and clean water. They used to sing and dance to thank me, and sometimes I would even sing and dance with them. Earth sighed deeply, and huge waves crashed on 1,000 beaches. "Well," intoned Neptune in his eerie deep voice, "what's the problem then? They sound rather delightful to me." I said they used to be cute and polite. Now they tear me up looking for gold and oil, and they burn that oil until my skies are black and smelly. They destroy habitat and bulldoze everything to make more cities. And you wouldn't believe how messy they are. They make all sorts of garbage and leave it everywhere. And they always want more, more, more. They are never satisfied. She stopped for breath, and a tear fell. The worst part is that they don't sing to me anymore, and they never, ever say thank you. I just don't know what to do. The other planets didn't know what to say or how to comfort Earth. Mars finally said, "Earth, I suggest you just shake 'em all off like fleas. Good riddance, tough love, that's what you need." Some of the other planets nodded, but the smallest ones just looked sad. Earth asked, "What do you think, little ones?" Mercury was too shy to say anything, but tiny, icy Pluto spoke up. "Earth, I am so sorry for your pain," she said. "The way they are treating you is terrible. But look at me. I float alone in space, just a big block of ice. No one has ever sung to me. I dream that one day I will be needed, that I will be able to care for my own creatures. I don't think that will ever happen. But so many creatures depend on you, Earth, even if they forget how to treat you. Perhaps they can learn. Please be patient with them a little longer." Earth said, "I don't know. Perhaps Mars' solution is the best one. I can't wait forever." But Earth asked Pluto, "What do you think I should do?" "It might be time for you to sing to them," whispered Pluto. And so Earth began to sing as she had not sung in a very long time. It was a song of creation, of warm earth and cool water and deep forest. She sang of dolphins and mountains and people. Yes, she sang of people. Despite their behavior, she still loved them dearly. The earth sang, and many wild things swayed and sang with her. Some grown-ups could not hear her song, but the children heard. Children in every nation stopped and listened. They began singing, too. Their mothers and fathers and teachers said, "What on earth has gotten into you?" The children spoke up and said, "Mom, I don't think we do a very good job with our recycling and composting." Or, "Dad, I'd like to ride my bike to school instead of driving." Or, "For my birthday, instead of presents I don't really need, let's ask for donations to a charity that helps the environment." When mothers and fathers and teachers asked, "What's bringing all this on?" the children didn't really know, but they knew these things were important, and Earth smiled. People here at UUCWI hear Earth's song. Here is what some of you are doing in response to Earth's sadness.
One of the ways I give back as a retired geologist, paleoclimatologist who moved here to Whitby 3 years ago is to be involved and volunteer my time with Sunwater Stewards at Pacific Rim Institute. With Sunwater Stewards, I help with their classes, I lead field trips, and I'm on their board and basically teaching about sustainable practices in the Salish Sea. At Pacific Rim Institute, we've been making biochar out of kiln, out of scrap wood, which is essentially charcoal that, once put in the soil, is a win-win for the climate and a win for the soil for farmers. We have a recent purchase of the Kelpie kiln for more mass production of making charcoal and sequestering carbon for our future. Thank you.
My Earth Day is really Earth Year. While I drive a 7-year-old Tesla and have planted dozens of trees and roadies around the property, my daily time and talent are dedicated to changing the story of humanity's relationship with Gaia. Through my website's New Stories and Great Transition Stories, I work to name, create, and amplify life-affirming stories that promote right relationship with Earth and life's processes. In addition, I use my treasure to invest in renewable energy and regenerative agriculture, climate mitigation technologies, to donate to NGOs working for the environment like Rainforest Action Network and Bioneers, Biomimicry, Commonweal, and League of Conservation Voters. And lastly, to support as many local nonprofits as I can through the Whidbey Community Foundation.
Hi. One of the ways I steward the environment is by lobbying my elected officials about legislation that protects it. That process is made so much easier by the Take Action Network tool. It is interesting and, like I said, very easy. After setting up a profile of your interests, an email is sent to you regularly with choices that you can act on. It's very well designed. You follow a few steps and then voila, you've created a strong, important message and input to do good for the environment and our Mother Earth. Gary and I are also members of the UU Justice Washington. That is a UU lobbying organization, and it's a member of Take Action Network. And here's the title again to help you remember. Take Action Network. I highly recommend it.
I'm Linda Good and my husband is Leonard, and we pick up litter on the beach and our driveway and everywhere. We recycle plastic. We have compost bins, worm bins, gardens, and we drive a hybrid car, and we have a heat pump.
And I'm David Edwards, and this is Francis Cameron Edwards, and we express our love for this earth in many ways. Francis, do we recycle?
Yes.
Do we grow our own food?
Yes.
Do we drive a hybrid car?
Yes.
Do we ever litter?
No.
Right. 1, 2, 3. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now.
Okay, Dick, let's talk about our conservation habits here at home.
Okay, I'm in charge of taking care of recycling our waste, our paper, our bottles and plastic and other waste materials.
I periodically walk over to the library, walk is the key word, to the library with our magazines after we've read them and donate them to their project for selling them for a very cheap price to people who want to read them.
Speaking of magazines, we have a subscription for our grandchildren to Ranger Rick, which is put out by the National Wildlife Association and teaches young people about conservation and preservation.
I also use laundry sheets. They're called Earth Breeze instead of laundry detergent, which comes in big plastic bottles. And last, I go down to a farm in Clinton called You Pick and pick as many vegetables and flowers sometimes. And so we have our fresh greens on the table from the island. That's it, Dick.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Check out my favorite user-friendly carbon offset website, TerraPass. There's a quick carbon calculator or a complicated one, your choice. There are lists of verified global projects. There are ways to only calculate an airplane trip. Then you can rest assured that you've helped to clean this lovely planet. Like I said, you can offset your flying, but you can do so much more. Since your driving, talking, singing, and breathing spews carbon as well as flying does, consider TerraPass's monthly donation to projects such as a landfill gas capture, a wind farm on Capricorn Ridge, and the Canningen Peatland Restoration Project. My family of 2, with 2 cars and no flights, costs me $27 a month. All the living things on our home planet are so glad I'm doing these offsets. Would you consider doing the same?
When I built my house, I had solar panels installed. If my solar panels generate more power than I use, the rest of the power is sent to Puget Sound Energy. And all of that is tracked by the net meter. I have bamboo flooring throughout the house except for the 2 bathrooms where I have tile flooring.
Hi, I'm Joan Green, and my service project is called Repurpose. I co-founded it with Derek Hoshiko and Sarah Berquist, and we already have 15 members, and we just started in December. So our group's goal is to have our community go zero waste. So we're doing that through policy change and community action. So today I'm at the community center, and we've become a partner of the South Whidbey Community Center. And so a lot of our community action happens here. Today I worked with students in the ALE program, along with one of our council members, Rhonda Salerno. And we zoomed in with Heather from Zero Waste Washington, and the kids are actually writing up a zero waste ordinance for Langley. So it's super exciting, and there's a lot of changes happening here at the community center. We're bringing in a lot of zero waste actions here, and just excited about all that's happening.
Hi, we're Sim and Kate, and since we've met, we've tried to live sustainably.
We actually have lived off the grid since 1987 until we came to the island.
And we've had hybrid cars.
And biked back and forth from work.
We've built houses off the grid.
And we don't grow lawns, we grow meadows.
And we use sustainable panels and felled trees and milled wood for our houses.
Since we lived in heavy snow country, we used high quality, thick insulation.
And there's a huge masonry heat sink.
And all of those rocks were carried by us.
And we use passive solar, ground source heat, and water from our own spring.
We always create migration paths for the wildlife.
We have vegetable gardens, and we practice composting.
And we're now converting our lawn to food and native plants.
We like to turn off the lights and use candles at night.
And it is wonderful to be in a community where other people are doing the same.
Let the mountains talk, let the river run. There is wisdom here. There's so much to learn, there is much to know, much to understand in this healing time all across the land. You have heard my song, oh so many years. You have laughed with me, washed away my tears. You have shared my joy. You have felt my pain. In this healing time, walk with me again. Through these darker days, on this narrow line, help me find my way. Help me see the sign. I am not afraid. I am not alone. You have taught me well. You have brought me home. Let the mountains speak. Let the river run. As the world awakes to the rising sun. In each brand new day, in our own rebirth, in this healing time on our Mother Earth. Let the mountains talk, let the rivers run. There is wisdom here. There's so much to learn in each brand new day, in our own rebirth, in this healing time for our Mother Earth. In each brand new day, in our own rebirth, in this healing time here on Mother Earth.
Well, thank you so much, Ken, and thank you also, Mavis, for this story. What wonderful gifts you're sharing with us today. I'm so grateful. And thanks also to everyone who worked really hard these last couple of weeks to make this all possible today. You've all just been lovely, and I'm very grateful. So it's actually been a bit of a challenge to know what to say today. This day is about sharing, as we said, and I'm relatively new to the community and relatively new to the island. I've been thrilled to find in the time that I've been here a thriving set of communities of practice taking up ecological matters in one way or another. It's really heartwarming to see. For many here, being connected and concerned with nature means drawing closer to the living landscape, or even actively working to preserve it. Speaking for myself, the parks here have been a literal breath of fresh air in these last couple of years. Having spent a large chunk of my youth in Massachusetts, I confess to a feeling of familiarity too, with the local history as one of seafaring colonization and the victors' memorialization of violence in the celebrations of public lands and that history. In short, for reasons that run deep and which impact me at the level of my spirituality, I find this land beautiful, even as I acknowledge the complexities of my own presence on it. And some folks tell me there's actually some water stuff to explore here too, and I guess I'll have to check that out over the next little while. I also hear whispers of this sort of strange land east of here, which claims to be the main land or whatever, with this mystical boat that will actually take you there if you're among the most patient and capable of enduring great spiritual trials by strange creatures. I've heard of something involved called a fairy line that can go on for hours. They say you can actually watch it on a web camera even, but I don't actually believe in fairies, and I don't watch Bigfoot webcams either. And who really wants to watch people suffering? But I don't need to tell you that this place is actually beautiful, or that it needs protecting. The deer alone have recently been massively disrupted on the Greenbank-Freeland border. At the same time, deer here are so free of natural predators that they can sustain unique and otherwise disadvantageous mutations, turning their coats white. What a marvel. I also don't need to tell you that global heating is real. Most everyone by this point has known about climate change in one way or another since they were relatively young. Folks from Gen X on have had it in the background of their lives from birth. I don't need to tell you that no one has done anything like enough and that no one appears to be on the way to save us. We seem destined for some rather challenging earth changes in the coming while. Bill McKibben points out that the earth we have known for the last several thousand years has already gone. And the earth the children of our current children will inherit will be a planet different enough to qualify as an alien world, where whole swaths of the planet will be intrinsically unbearable for the human form. At the moment, the climate, considered the natural human niche, is on the move, heading around 30 feet per day towards the poles, which are themselves already radically transformed. We already have climate refugees in large numbers, with less than humane responses to them. What will happen as the numbers and desperation grow? I wish I could say that Earth Day was entirely a day of celebration, when we know it is in some sense a day of mourning. I wish I could say that I knew that humanity would come together and fix the problem. We can prevent the very worst of it, but not all of it at this point. In the words of Greta Thunberg, I don't want you to feel better. I want you to panic a little. What is happening is worse than war. It will, in fact, as only one of its symptoms, be a cause for the eruption of real war again as a common affair of mankind. Things have the potential to get very ugly. But there is some good news for us. The truth is that the kinds of things that sustain life also sustain a life well lived. We can solve several of our problems with the same approach, feeding several squirrels with one acorn, as it were. So how is that? What is that approach? Well, it begins at home. And by beginning at home, I don't necessarily mean at our houses or apartments or whatever our living conditions are. It's important to research and transform our home economies, of course, but although the forces of capitalism would have us believe so, we can't actually consume our way out of the problem. In fact, how much of the problem is, in fact, consumption and consumerism itself? It seems that it's probably the largest part of the problem. We've been told that material improvements to our life alone will bring the good life. And we've been told also that the only way to bring material improvement to our lives is through consumerism. Both parts of that are a lie. Is a world of fast fashion and IKEA furniture actually an improvement in the material condition of our lives? And does it bring the good life? While we may never all agree on what the good life is, we should recognize that it should reflect some degree of satisfaction and happiness. How can we gain the good life from a way of living that asks us to be permanently dissatisfied? Always wanting and wanting more. Wanting to want. Even aching to feel. How can we be happy when our system thrives on our unhappiness? When in fact it counts on the permanent exploitation and unhappiness of some people, if not ultimately all people, as well as animals, and even all life. So the first step is to use our imagination. We have to picture our ideal. Now, there are different ways to do that, but we should think critically about whatever we come up with. Who does it include or exclude? Why? There are many people, for example, concerned with the idea of cognitive justice. Cognitive justice would argue against scenarios that often occur, where traditional and indigenous ways of knowing the world and each other are disrespected. Even as knowledge created by those systems, for example, the cures for our diseases and malaises, are stolen by corporations acting in colonizing ways, with no benefit to those who actually produce the knowledge. Or where traditional farming techniques are disrupted by the enforcement of bizarre and unhelpful intellectual property rights held over seeds and other natural goods. Eileen Christ, in her book Abundant Earth, Towards an Ecological Civilization, argues that we must recognize that cognitive justice in our era must include the recognition also of animal minds and their forms of intelligence, some uncannily like ours, some seeming so even weirdly across vast abysses of time and evolutionary space. All those minds, those whole beings, are squashed and destroyed, their family and species lines, but also their cultures destroyed. The must-watch documentary called Intelligent Trees explains quite clearly how even trees have a culture that matters and brings well-being when intact and hale. The forces that have done so much damage to the natural world have also done similar damage to human cultural worlds as well, and to our ecologies of selfhood. Just as we ought to in the natural world, in fact, because we are part of the natural world, we ought to take human cultural diversity into account as well, not to mention forms of human biodiversity. Bodies must not just survive as what philosopher Giorgio Agamben calls bare life. Our hearts and minds must also flourish, as must those of other life, those sentient beings with whom we have shared this planet as latecomers or little siblings, and frankly, rather bad guests. So we must envision a world way that values life and values it full and whole, which sees a purpose at all to the question of the good life for all, that recognizes that the magic of language and communication and culture are no more uniquely human than our weaving or medicine or play or slavery or pet keeping or agriculture, or funerals, or love, or spirituality. We find these all in the animal world. We live in a world that is vastly, tremendously alive, full of natural wisdom, where magic is public as the air. But it is dying, and quickly, and soon. Our efforts can't just be generative, they must also be regenerative. The nature of human culture now has an ethical charge, as it often does in crises and states of emergency. We can't just be responsive. We are now responsible. The good life for us now has conditions on it. Thinkers as wildly divergent as Martin Heidegger and Isabel Stengers have noted the importance of the emergence of these kinds of conditions for the human future, and how sensitive the unfolding of the Earth system is to the decisions that contemporary humans make. They both speak of the coming of a new God, in the sense of the more than human forcing imposed limits on the definition of what the good life is or can be. Stengers argues that it is Gaia, and that we must conduct our imagined futures with her in mind. And that includes relating to other imaginaries and knowledges as valid and relevant expressions of whole existences. Perhaps one way of defining the good life on these terms is finding whole existence, feeling like an integrated person in a peaceful context. So how can we recover whole existence for ourselves? Well, as we've indicated, the goal and the way to reach it are the same. We recover whole existence by intentionally existing in whole ways. We find the good life by living well. But how do we know what that means? Well, I believe the answer is a kind of spirituality, a way of finding the goodness in life and embracing it, that also embraces this new ethical charge as a positive force, as a higher calling. This is an eco-spirituality, thinking human ecology as a sacred ecology, embedded as one among many sacred ecologies, all of which deserve and, through Gaia, in fact, demand our approach to them be one of profound respect and mutual support. We can choose to act accordingly or not, but in some sense, we've always been in her thrall. Fortunately, we belong to a tradition that already thinks this way, as articulated in our principles, if we take them seriously. Indeed, upon investigation, we find many profound implications in the interaction of the ideas articulated in that remarkable list. I would argue that there are implications in there for at least several whole ways of living, but that none likely include consuming the earth whole. Part of the literature of that tradition is the doctoral dissertation of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote it at a moment in his life when he was still drawn to Unitarian thought explicitly. He writes in large part about the thought of an important Unitarian theologian who espouses the idea of creative interchange or creative exchange. The basic idea is that the description of a way of being that allows for coexistence with variation, even deep variation, that also produces mutual advantage and a flourishing togetherness. For me, the relationship between Whidbey Island residents and pollinators, for example, is a great example of efforts in this direction, and we already saw that play out this morning in our conversations. People have become aware of a problem and seek to aid the pollinators who do so very much for us. This is becoming a relationship of renewed and intentional creative exchange as a form of regenerative living. So I highly recommend you Google Dr. King's dissertation and spend a little time reading it. You'll find versions available online for free. This idea of mutual support has many forms, from buying local to also demanding that local businesses pay at least living wages, from taking an interest in the local watershed to engaging directly with the local fiber shed, the local fiber production ecology, from thinking about our choices and actions through the lived experience of local deer, to sharing our ideas on the successes of our victory gardens, as well as their fruits. Regardless, the goal and ethic is the mutual flourishing of whole existences in their innumerable pluralities, and the happy peaceability this offers all creatures, including other humans. This perspective naturally includes human biosocial diversity, including forms of queerness, disability, and neurodiversity. So we must work to keep our hearts open very wide in this work of eco-spirituality, In fact, the wide open heart that embraces and shares in communion, community, and creative exchange at every level may be the very definition of eco-spirituality. Let's pretend for today, at least, that it is, and look to keep our hearts open wide in loving solidarity and community at every level of our whole being. In fact, let's now turn to some more examples of exactly this in this very community. We've already shown one video, and now, in the spirit of mutual affirmation and learning love from each other, we would like to share another. So here we go.
Hello. Today, I'd like to talk about toilet paper. Yep, you heard me. TP, the loo roll, bathroom tissue. Call it what you will, but the reality is our use of TP is contributing to ecological calamity. 15% of deforestation is due to the production of TP. We found that worrisome. So we looked for a reasonable solution, and we think we found it. Now, we buy our toilet paper from Who Gives a Crap? They deliver it right to your door in recyclable boxes. Each roll is colorfully and tastefully wrapped in reusable paper that we give to local kids for arts and crafts. Sometimes the rolls even have games on the wrappers, like this one called Find the Loo. And best of all, they donate 50% of their profits to ensure everyone in the world has access to clean water and a toilet. You can help save the planet too, one flush at a time. Who gives a crap? We do.
One of the ways I choose to give back is to volunteer here at the Pacific Rim Institute just south of Coopville, where I live. I have multiple opportunities to plant and propagate wildflowers for prairie restoration in the greenhouse. I've had a chance to plant Gary oaks and creating a native savanna. And the Pacific Rim Institute is devoted to stewardship, education, prairie restoration, and research. One of the things that Diane and I really love is collecting wildflower seed in the summer and helping out at Cider Fest, their fun and fundraising event in the fall. But the best thing I like is leading tours, sharing with people the wonders of the land and Pacific Rim's work.
This is Christy Schaefer. I hate throwing things away that goes in the landfill. I love shopping at the thrift stores where I can recycle clothes, take them in, and buy them. But I also want to share that Good Cheer takes 100% cotton old rags, clothes, and sells them, and people use them for insulation. I have t-shirts, old towels, jeans, sheets, pillowcases, rags, underwear, anything, socks that's 100% cotton. And isn't it grand not going into the landfill?
Every day, Denise makes us big green salads, and we have lots of vegetable scraps. So we take those and blend them in the Cuisinart and feed them to our worms.
We're going.
After blending, we bring the food out here to the worms. Put it in. You have to come over here, Denise, and show everybody the worms. There's John and Henry and Sydney and Xavier. We have about 8,000 of them. And what happens is I put in this, all the vegetables, and then some damp, dry paper of the newspaper variety, and they mix it up, and it comes out the bottom as mulch, which I put on the garden. And that's how we keep produce waste out of the food, out of the garbage stream, and a lot of paper. called vermiculture.
Hi, my name is Mark, and we've replaced over 80 lights in our house with LEDs that use 1/4 of the power of ordinary bulbs.
We generally have a nice crop of dandelions in our lawn because we don't use any herbicides or any other kinds of poisons on the property. And the bees love the dandelions.
I choose to buy organic produce because organic farming helps our environment by reducing the number of pesticides, by protecting birds, bees, wildlife from toxic chemicals, causing less soil and water pollution, and releasing less greenhouse gases by not using oil-based fertilizers.
Hello, I'm Richard Gammon. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and what we're doing in our family to meet the climate change challenge. I have been a climate scientist for most of my career, and now in retirement, I spend a lot of time giving public talks about climate change science and options for people to take action. In our home, we're proud to say we have no fossil fuel at all. We recycle and we compost. We have 10 kilowatts of solar panels on the roof. We have a ductless heat pump system for heating our house. I took out the front lawn and we expanded our vegetable garden. We have LED lighting throughout the house, and we have no propane backup generator when the power goes out. In transportation, we drive an electric vehicle, a Chevy Bolt, and we buy carbon offsets when we have to fly, for example, to be with grandchildren. What I hope to do in the future is replace our second vehicle, which is a diesel EV VW Jetta, with an electric vehicle, to have a better weatherization in our house, and to have a battery backup system in case the power goes out. Thank you.
How great that you and I, agree on the importance of doing our share to care for this planet. For instance, we grow and eat some of our own veggies, and I am definitely looking forward to receiving goodies from the CSA we subscribed to this year.
And you so cleverly arranged with the neighbor to share their compost bin, finding that we didn't have room on our property for one. And also, let's mention the air quality sensor to help the Clean Air Agency monitor how our area is doing.
Yes, and then there are our cars. We both drive as little as possible, and I drive a hybrid. I know you would too, if only hybrids had been invented when you last bought a vehicle.
Yes, but that rig carries the native plants that were placed around the church and on our property. I think we should also mention the other uses, such as taking to the recycle center. And we've become experts on recycling plastics.
Yes, amen.
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
Could you turn up the heat, please?
Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody. My property in downtown Coupeville is only about a 1/4 acre. It's not very big, and I wanted to increase the amount of area I could plant in. So I decided to do that. I heard about a group in Portland, Oregon called D-Pave, and they do all these projects all over the city, taking up asphalt and putting in gardens. And I said, I'm gonna do that here. So I took up about 500 square feet of what was driveway, just plain old paved driveway, and turned it into a little orchard with a peach and an apple back there and a bunch of native plants so that I can attract wildlife and just have this blissful place that I can be in every day, and I love it. I gotta see this. So far we've had almost 70 species of birds show up here and over 70 species of moths that are feeding on all the plants that we put in here. It's very exciting.
Wow. Thank you all for contributing your ideas. So please be sure to look later this week in our service archive so that you can see the rest that we didn't have time to share. The nature, in honor of Earth Day, we are going to dedicate our offering today to the Nature Conservancy. It was envisioned in 1915 with the invention of a field of study called ecology. Initially named the Ecologists Union, it evolved into the current day Nature Conservancy by 1951. Today, they tackle the most complex environmental challenges, supporting conservation across more than 70 countries. They preserve, protect, restore, and nurture over 800,000 acres in Washington alone, including Eby's Landing here on the island, Rockport area of the Skagit River, the Hoh River rainforest, and Yellow Island between Orcas and San Juan. Globally, they have protected more than 119 million acres of land and 5,000 river miles, and they manage more than 100 marine projects. In their efforts to mitigate the devastation of our climate crisis, they claim our forests and grasslands could pull 11 billion metric tons of carbon from the atmosphere. This is a full third of what we need. Clearly, the Nature Conservancy is our ally, and they practice the values we at UUCWI profess. Perhaps we can practice what the children did in Mavis's story. For your birthday, give and ask others to give something for Mother Earth. Please donate generously. Our lives quite literally depend on it. While Jay extinguishes our chalice, I offer these closing words from Rabbi Yael Levy. Who knows what will happen? Who knows what will be? Do not let uncertainty keep you from acting. Let the not knowing encourage engagement and exploration. Let the not knowing call forth audacity and strength. We do not know where our actions will lead. We do not know the numbers of our days. What we do know is that our world is crying and in need of us all. May we reach toward each other with kindness. May we care for each other with generosity and respect. May we engage, act, risk, and love. Who knows? Perhaps it is for this very moment that we are here. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, and blessed be. Ken has gifted us another song, The Gentle Arms of Eden, after which we will gather in one of two breakout rooms as you are so inclined. One, a welcome circle for any of you new to this congregation, or you can join Jay and me in a reflection about how we, as members of this community, can live into our shared vision to practice earth stewardship.
On a sleepy, endless ocean, when the world lay in a dream, there was rhythm in the splash and roll, but not one voice to sing. So the moon fell on the breakers, and the morning warmed the waves, till a single cell did jump and hum, for joy as though to say, this is my home, this is my only home. This is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray in the dark and night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. And then the day shone bright and round her, till the one turned into two, and two into 10,000 things, and old things into new. And on some virgin beach had one lonesome critter crawled, and he looked about and shouted out in his most astonished drawl, "This is my home, this is my only home, this is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray in the dark and night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden." Then all the sky was buzzing, and the ground was carpet green, and the wary children of the woods went dancing in between. And the people sang rejoicing when the fields were glad with grain, this song of celebration from their cities on the plain. This is my home, this is my only home, the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray through the dark and night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Now there's smoke across the harbor, and there's factories on the shore, and the world is ill with greed and will, and enterprise of war. But I will lay my burden in the cradle of your grace, and the shining beaches of your love, and the sea of your embrace. This is my home, this is my only home, this is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray in the dark and night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden.
Hello everyone, welcome to Earth and Ocean Month. This is the Simple Gifts Farm, Rhonda, Gordon, and Marina, and we're going to share a couple tips with you that we do on our farm. One of the things that we set up a long time ago was a rain barrel that collects water from the roof. We have one dedicated roof because our other roofs are all cedar, and this goes into a rain barrel filter that we have charcoal, gravel, and sand in, which filters the water. And underneath this deck, which you cannot see, is a 1,700-gallon water tank. And when that water tank overflows, we have a direct line to our pond that you see the ducks and the geese enjoying right now. So that automatically overflows into there. And then I'm going to meet you down here with Gordon. So the water that comes from up above is gravity fed down to our pond and our garden, and it provides lots of rainwater for our animals and food. That way we're not bringing water in over a bluff that's unstable and adding more water to the ecosystem. And as you can see, the thing Gordon was excited about is that we keep 2 different compost buckets, one with things that we don't feed to our animals, and one with scraps from food that we feed to our animals. And they love it. I'm going to let Gordon feed them this while we're talking. And we also asked for food from We also have a food bucket that we bring to the store every week or so, and they fill it up with lovely lettuce because we ask them for it, and things that they would go to waste otherwise and our animals make use of. We know that the issue of food waste in the dump is a big one. It's one of the greatest methane offers there is. So we deal with our food waste in many ways. So you can see we drink a lot of coffee. But we have one side of the worm bin going at all times under warmth, and that turns into worms casting. And then we have the other one that we throw various things in, and it's an amazing system. Simple, and Gordon gets great soil to put on his beautiful garden. And so food waste is our second passion. Good luck to you all.
For my Earth Day homily, I'd like to take you on a pilgrimage of fertility. A seer has admonished us to start with the end in mind. Many people choose to live a life separate from such earthly enrichment, or to respond with horror when confronted by the inevitable. But that is not the path I have chosen. I have instead endeavored to live closer to nature's cycles. For example, with my feathered fellow pilgrims on this journey. For these ladies, what comes at the end is scattered freely in their world as impulse dictates. Still, there are focal destinations on their paths that are favored for their contributions. Once these contributions have been made, these generous pilgrims deny ownership of their efforts, and it's left to me to carry on and to walk the path toward a more nourishing life. Proceeding on the path laid before me, I carry their contributions forward. I move through what is sometimes the home of grand processors of grass. Ruminating on those peaceful lives, I recall that they also gave liberally to the cause, both in pure, exuberant outpouring with donations united in the very bed on which they lay. Moved, but without pausing, I proceed on to where I've laid down nature's contribution for a new period of contemplative enrichment. This is where I deliver the richness collected and provided to the cathedral of composting. The assembled abundance is provided a long opportunity for interactive and aerobic repose until its essence is transformed and a new, mature integration is unfolded with all its potential revealed. Then, and only then, the wealth of goodness can be moved one last time, blanketing the waiting haven with a soft layer of nurturance that emerges with the very fundament of the earth. This is a new opportunity for life created, a plenitude of fertility and possibility. All this because it began with the end in mind.
It's a beautiful day on Whidbey Island, and I'm outside sitting in this beautiful environment where I can hear birds, watch the trees move as the breeze goes through them. I'm thinking about how to help Mother Earth and changes I've made in my life. Less plastic. I compost. I recycle. Many of you do. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. I like them roaming in the fields. So how do we help Mother Earth? Imagine, just imagine, many of us making changes out of the love for this place we call home. Blessings in abundance.
Hi, I'm Nydia, and welcome to the forest that we are blessed to live within. And this year we put in solar panels and we put in the heat pump. But the things we feel most connected with are the spiritual practices that John and I follow that connect us deeply to the spirits and our land. And one of the things that we're doing, and John's going to scroll over here, is that we're helping repair the land. Like most of the land on the United States, she was heavily logged. And so if you see the orange tags, you see where we are listening to our land and seeing where she would like to be helped along and planting. We brought in our cultural heritage from Ireland and are planting fairy rings to bless our land. We're doing things like take the fruits from our garden, and before we eat them, we offer them in blessing. We take the pruned dead heads from our hydrangeas and we offer them to the forest. It's all about right relationship and acknowledging the blessings as we listen to our land.
Here's Tom washing the pollen off our solar panels, hoping to capture every available photon. Our worms, sheltered under cardboard through the winter, have been busy turning kitchen scraps into compost for the garden. These Douglas fir saplings, a total of 30 planted last year, have doubled in size. And we successfully transplanted a row of greenery that had to be removed for Tom's workshop construction.
Hi there, my name is Sue Abbott, and I joined the church several months ago from East Shore Unitarian. And what I do to practice earth stewardship is to maintain a connection to nature. I grow things. I tend them, admire them, love them. I nurture nature to repay nature for nurturing me. And I've noticed that that has been the most important golden thread in my life. I grew up on a farm. I had a grandmother who was an avid gardener and took on a gardening job to help put myself through college, and majored in horticulture and landscape architecture, and everywhere I've lived I've had a garden. And so here too on Whidbey Island.
How can we as a family care for the earth and confront climate change? We can strive to maintain, repair, reuse, repurpose, recycle those products we use responsibly, and in this way reduce the contribution to pollution and landfills. We can observe, respect, and learn from and protect wildlife that live in and pass through our woodland property. We can grow food plants and pollinators in our gardens, plus buy locally grown vegetables, meat, and other protein sources. We can support and donate to organizations that research the lives and habitats of birds and animals around the globe, and who thus strive to encourage their health and viability worldwide. We can work with organizations who report on companies whose products poison the environment and plants and animals as well as humans, and support boycotting and other measures to resist those company behaviors.